As the last talk before the coffee break, this is one, I gotta tell you, Anna, come on up on stage here. Anna Heim from TechCrunch, ladies and gentlemen. She's gonna be leading the next panel. I put this session together, and there was great debate at the Tech.eu headquarters, because this is a topic very, very near and dear to my heart. This is the ultra geek out. This is deep tech. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Heim is going to be leading the discussion on deep tech. I'm going to go sit in the front row because this is some seriously nerdy shit. Pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, you see my cup.
Come on up, folks. Come on up. Come on up.
Lift up when I come back. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, everyone's a surprise here, so I think maybe we can start with that. I'll just have the panelists introduce themselves one by one, but I really want to start with this because it's really calling people's attention. So, Anna, can you tell us what this is and what you do?
Yes, so hello everyone. My name is Anna Maiques. I'm the CEO and founder of Neuroelectrics, and I think the only reason why these guys invite me is because they want me to wear the cap. So this is my famous cap. People are starting not to recognize me when I'm not wearing it, which is kind of like a weird sign. So this technology, which we developed in Barcelona, we started in Europe, is now doing brain stimulation, non-invasive stimulation to deal with diseases like epilepsy, depression, or Alzheimer's. So as a company, we believe this technology can become a new therapy for millions of patients in need. And as you know, the brain is the most complex part of our body. We yet not understand it. And that's why deep tech and funding is great. I'm in the advisory board of the EIC, so it's great to share with Stéphane. And I'm a firm believer of scaling up European companies. I scale up my company, from Barcelona to Boston. And we've been really, really successful in the United States. We are going to become the first company in the world to go through the FDA with this relevant technology. So a lot to learn from the experience, and I hope that during this debate we can see how we can scale up deep tech European companies.
Well, that's a great transition. So, Riam, please introduce yourself and tell us what deep tech is for you, and we'll see if we all agree.
Shall I start with deep tech then?
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Hi, my name is Riam, and I used to be a neuroscientist, so we have that in common. But I left after my PhD, I left academia, and 7 years later I started ConceptionX, which is the leading UK deep technology venture builder, but we focus on PhDs. So deep tech, to segue into that, we define it as a technology that's based on meaningful scientific innovation with some level of R&D risk. So now things that fall under that are new types of AI, robotics, quantum computing, microcircuits, new ways of creating computer chips, etc. So in some ways it's a moving definition, because what is deep tech now might not be deep tech 10 years from now, and things that we don't consider that are deep tech now probably were when they were first created. So ConceptionX does something very specific. We take PhD students in STEM during their degree, and we help them start companies during the duration of their thesis by working with the universities. We started in University College London in 2018, and now we're across 30 universities in the UK. The model is scalable, so we hope to be working across Europe as well. So far, 250 PhD teams have gone through the program, and 40% have successfully built companies that are growing. But the nice thing is that those who haven't built companies either gain more entrepreneurial skills, so they become better at winning innovation grants, or they become eligible for jobs they wouldn't otherwise. And I'll just kind of finish my introduction with one example, which is our most recent exit. Rocco is a quantum drug discovery company. They came to us as 3 PhD students with an idea, and within a year and a half they had a company, they raised investment, they formed collaborations, and now they've been acquired. So it can happen, and we hope to see more examples like that. ConceptionX is 0 equity, and we're free for the students, which is also kind of new as well.
Well, congrats on combining the definition with a great elevator pitch. And I think you touched on expanding into Europe, which I'd like to ask Stéphane about, because the panel is also about the European deep tech revolution. Why do you think Europe is the place for that then?
Well, Europe is very good at producing innovation, like Anna is showing us right now, and we believe that we have not been very good in Europe at making money out of science, and this is why DIC has been created, to try to transform the great, I would say, ideas of our innovators that are doing it in universities mostly, also cooperation with some corporates, some startups and so on, and try to bring it to the market, and we have 3 funding instruments for that. Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator, where we are trying to support the innovators at every stage of the development of their ideas. And where we are trying to make a difference is that we are advised by people like Anna, coming from the front lines, coming from the market, telling us the type of issues they are facing, and trying to tell us, to get us out of our comfort zone. I mean, we know that as European Commission will not be the most agile or flexible type of organization, but we are trying to learn from the best how this is done. And we are trying to change and go with the flow, because I agree with you, Riam, and things change very, very quickly in this space. So we have to be flexible and agile, and for that we have a big budget of 10 billion euros to spend over the period until 2027. And of course, we are trying also to develop services like the one you are just explaining that you do in order to improve, I would say, the capacity of our beneficiaries to take it to the next stage, because a lot of the problems we face in Europe is that entrepreneurial spirit may not be exactly at the top. And the capacity of getting access to the right financial people in order to help you build your companies may not be exactly there, certainly not as good as it is on the other side of the Atlantic, as often we are being compared to. So we think that this initiative is trying really to cover all the different areas, and of course we've been running a pilot in the years 18 to 20. We learn lots of lessons, in particular on how we invest equity in companies. And we are trying now to integrate these lessons now when we implement the fully fledged DIC in this financial period. So we still have quite a way to go, but we think we have made quite a convincing start with the first companies that have been selected, and hopefully we will now deepen our interest, because of course deep tech is the current revolution that is happening all over the world. It's not just simply in Europe, and we can capitalize very much on the innovations that are coming out of our ecosystem and try to give them a fair chance to compete and build the global companies of tomorrow.
So Anna, from your perspective as also being familiar with Boston and also being an advisor to the EIC, what's your perspective on European chances? Why is Europe well placed for this?
So, well, this is my brain now upside down after this question. I'm going to put it right. But I think that it's a difficult question. Sometimes I think that I may not be smart enough, because we've been with my company with this one 10 years and 10 years previously, you know, research in neuroscience. But bottom line is that to do deep tech, to do revolutionary science takes time. And to develop a new technology, you need the funding to sustain it. That's why I think the EIC is so important, right? You have the Pathfinder, now we can invest in companies, and I think there is no other way. We are not a dating, social media, software company that you can, pull up like that. Deep tech, climate change, health, we will only solve with really deep tech new technologies, and we need the model to fund them. So I think the EIC is great. I think that Boston, which is the ecosystem where I work, is a very unique place where science, compared to other regions like the Silicon Valley, is the king, right? You cannot succeed in Boston without having strong science. But I think that there is a lot of philanthropy money, there is a lot of grant money, there is a lot of funding available in the United States, which I believe hasn't happened so much in Europe. So I don't think they are better in a way. I think they have more money and experience, and we are a little bit behind. So what we need to do is speed up, this recovery. The other thing that shocks me, the difference between the US and Europe, is not only the money, but the mentality. I think we are pretty bad on the business side. So one of the reasons, well, until now, one of the reasons why I think my company was successful is because my co-founder is a physicist and mathematician, and I am a business person. So from day one, business and science were together. But I think we need more business into the science and more science into the businesses, right? So these cultures are not easy to match, right? And I think that sometimes in the American culture, this business is more, you know, this making money, it's more in the culture than in Europe. So we need to get up to speed. But I'm very confident because we have amazing scale-ups in Europe. We had a breakfast this morning with some of them. And we are now building phenomenal companies from Europe that are growing fast, that are scaling up. So I think that we are just picking up. We just need to, you know, keep on pushing hard.
So Riam, about the thing about the life cycle of deep tech being quite long, I think that's one of the reasons why you don't take equity. Maybe you can talk a bit about that?
I mean, so deep tech requires patient capital in principle, but I think one of the motivations that we at Conception X to go for a zero equity model is that right now, going for a standard equity model, you'd still be biased to take companies that have a standard life cycle because the selection would be on that basis. So the companies that are, or the ideas that are the riskiest wouldn't make it, and actually those are the ones that are interesting. Like there are tons of programs out there that are based on an equity model and they have things, but we have the crazy science, which currently no one takes, and that's what makes it exciting. I also think that with early stage deep tech companies, the honest answer is that a lot of them do better if they raise grant money for a while before they raise their first venture round, because things take longer to develop, etc. And with Conception X being zero equity, we have the freedom to actually advise them to go in that direction, and we remain kind of a neutral participant in the middle. So I think, you know, the typical Silicon Valley venture model works very well for some things, but this is very much more like invention, and it just needs a different approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to follow up with you on the training part, how do you help PhDs being good business leaders?
Yeah, so we are not a training program. We're more like a process and an experience. Mm-hmm. So Conception X is 9 months long. It's called Conception, so it's 9 months. So yeah, but it's a modular program, and there are different layers to it. The first, and I think this might be interesting to some people in the audience here, we have a training program that we have had to devise from scratch because the standard business training that is available now in entrepreneurship courses tends to not work for deep tech. Like the lean startup model and like thinking about your customer's problem and then building a solution. We have many people who come with a piece of technology that we have to find a solution for. So we've actually had to go to a lot of European funding principles, talk to them about technology readiness levels, where a piece of tech fits, product building life cycles, etc. And then, of course, the fun part about teaching scientists and engineers how to speak to customers, which is the best. But then once we've identified that someone has a prototype or close to one, we upgrade them to what we call the startup track. And that is where we assign them exited entrepreneurs, preferably who have built a similar technology before, and they work with them for the rest of the 6 months to actually build the product. And then we get an industry mentor. These are people who we pay. This is not the pro bono type mentorship where people come and go. And finally is the investment readiness, where we teach them how to pitch or to write grants, and we select the 10 top ones at the end. So it's pretty intensive, and I think we're more like a data company with events rather than necessarily just a training program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Stéphane, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understood correctly, the entrepreneurs also need to go through a process to talk to you, and they also, it's a form of due diligence where they also learn about their own company, am I right?
Yeah, I know it's not so easy to get access to our money, that admittedly. But of course, for those, I mean, requires sometimes trying several times. Some people, some companies try several times before they get access to the money. But of course, that allows them, once they are in and once they have passed the different stages, to be then supported, usually with a package of grant and equity money that takes some time to be actually released. We play, of course, with trenches in order not to get the startups to swim in too much money at first. And of course, the grant is there because, I mean, we agree. I mean, on deep tech, you have to have a remaining layer of grant in order to absorb the R&D cost often, and the prototyping, the testing is necessary. But at the same time, we provide patient equity. And there we depart from the normal, I would say, VC model, because of course for deep tech this is very, very complicated to be able in 3 to 5 years to have a positive exit and to allow this type of model. So of course we at the same time are trying to team up with a lot of other investors across Europe that share, I would say, the same impact investment angle or the same deep tech angle. And we have been, we see a kind of attraction there. I mean, in these past few years in Europe, a lot more money is coming into that space, which is very good, and that provides us to actually not be the only one there, because one mistake we want absolutely to avoid is to be the only one supporting a company, and then of course, if only the public sector supports a company, I don't think it's very good for the company to have that label on it. So we need to absolutely do it in combination with private investors, and I think we are getting quite now good at getting this interest coming from private investors, and of course our role is to provide that money in order to de-risk sufficiently the company to become attractive. So this process is not an easy one. It takes time, to the frustration of many of our beneficiaries. We recognize that. So apologies for the difficulties that sometimes we have to get the money out of the door. But at the end of the day, we have managed a number of successes, of course, over the period since we've been running the pilot since 2018. And we see that steadily but surely we are making progress in supporting those companies. At the same time, and because we are very pragmatic, does not necessarily mean that US investors that are coming increasingly in Europe to look for opportunities in deep tech are not welcome to team up with us. But of course, we are there to provide the opportunities for our companies to find the possibility to grow and scale in Europe. And this is, of course, where the DNA of the EIC is really.
So, Anna, you've been in this for a while. So, what is your impression? Do you agree with Stéphane that there's a bit more momentum lately, in terms of, at least for investor interest?
Well, I think that when I was calling to the EIC, I was like, oh my God, Brussels. But then, you think that the EIC is managing 10 billion for startups. I remind you, 10 billion. This is money that, should go to grow our startups, right? And there is a lot of focus on women-led organizations, on widening countries and diversity, which I very think that the tech world needs more diversity. And I think the EIC has a lot to say in that, and the board is, there are heated discussions on these women and diversity issues. So I think that, this is really good, and I know it's hard because we are talking about this dinosaur, the Commission, but I can tell you from the EIC board that the fact that the Commission is directly investing in companies is quite a stretch, right? And this is happening. So I know it doesn't come without a free ticket, but we are changing things. And my hope, and I know the whole team at the EIC, is to make sure all these millions are helping the talent in Europe that doesn't have geography, sex, or gender to become phenomenal companies. So all of our daughters and sons, I have 4 kids, may find in Europe a wonderful place to work, in science, in startups, in engineers. So yes, I agree with Stéphane, and I just cannot support the EIC more. I think they have a great role, and I just encourage startups to apply, and to really try to get that money.
Mm-hmm. And just going back to the UK for a second, because I was reading a great report actually about university spin-outs in the UK, and I was surprised by the geographic diversity of the universities that have the best shots at converting into startups. So do you have any thoughts on that? Because sometimes the universities we think as top ones are not necessarily the ones that produce the best entrepreneurs.
I mean, there are clusters across the UK where different regions are supported by the traditional local industrial community, and then a lot of those people turn into investors, and it's still concentrated in certain areas. But like if you go to Edinburgh, the robotics research is excellent, and there are lots of companies coming from there. London is still a bit focused on fintech, and then there's biotech and clean energy in the north of the UK as well. But one of the things we're trying to do as in Conception X is to bring students from all of these universities and put them in front of the same panel of VCs, so that geography doesn't play the same role anymore, and it's working. And I think this is why it's kind of popular across the UK, because the distribution of wealth doesn't need to follow where people live and want to go have meetings. And so I think it's changing for the better in that regard.
I also really like the verticals you mentioned because, again, it shows that deep tech is not just AI, as people may think, but it's also robotics, and you say fintech and clean energy and so on. So I think that was really interesting. Do you have one last takeaway message, each of you, maybe, to wrap up?
I think if we want this planet to survive, we need deep tech. So we need to concentrate on it and put money in it.
That's hard to follow on.
Yeah, just type EIC call and you see the next cutoff.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
And I encourage, just to get more people. This is going to be the war for talent, and especially scientific and deep tech talent. So I encourage any measure we can to inspire boys and girls to study, science and to really become competitive, because we are going to need an army of deep tech thinkers and doers to change the world. So thank you.
Thank you very much.